conservation easement on 395 of our 422 acres and will soon hold another 20 acres. The following took place. Complaints to the Western Reserve about how the tree cutting was handled. Never mind that I personally walked the land with the Western Reserve rep and the contractor. Letters to the editor calling into question the board's ability to care for parkland, completely ignoring Western Reserve's approval of the project. And finally, and most shocking to me, a call to the county auditor's office or someone in this room with a claim that we were logging the land and should lose our tax-exempt status. While I cannot say publicly who called, I can tell you this person knew very well the conservation easement required to cut trees to remain in the forest. 3, well, in a state audit, which this board has passed many times and was wrapping up with no apparent major findings, the county auditor called the state auditor and a decision was made to stop the results of the audit until we worked out our issues with the county budget commission. No one I've spoken with has ever heard of this being done before. 4, the county budget commission failing to pass our 2019 budget. This is an unprecedented act in Geauga County. No one is aware of a budget not being passed in this county. On top of not passing the budget commissioners dragged out what is typically one 10-minute session into 2 40-plus minute public sessions where this board was berated, accused of being potentially malfeasant, and ultimately denied our budget. In fact, all of you can listen to the audio from these meetings at the RussellTownshipParkDistrict.com website. A few more issues with the Budget Commission come to mind. The sole funds we were to receive had they passed our budget this year was $2,500 from the library fund, half of the previous amount, because they had already decided to give half to the 511 board. The only plausible reason I can think of to not pass our budget and work with us after the fact was to make it nearly impossible for us to pass a levy. Auditor Walters still does not agree with what our attorney, Dale Markowitz, a preeminent attorney in the area and someone well-versed in working with budget commissions, understood the Budget Commission to want. As of this past Friday, Auditor Walter and County Prosecutor Jim Flays still disagreed on why the budget didn't pass. I have documents from Mr. Walter that show some accounting errors and a misallocation of inside millage, and he has been very helpful talking me through this process. But at the same time, Mr. Flays contends in a letter sent to the Park Board and the editors of the local newspapers that, quote, the Park Board improperly put restricted levy money into the general fund. How can our accountants and how can we fix this when they cannot agree on what the problem is? Our accountants, one with decades of experience in the county auditor's office, and the other, a former senior state audit manager for the state of Ohio, cannot complete their work at this time because there's no clear direction or agreement among the budget commissioners. You may hear from activists in this audience that we could lease our parklands to the 511. I say the 511 has no money, no land, and has not shared any information with the public as to what they would do with the $325,000 should their levy pass. They have, however, shared their 2019 budget with the trustees. Of the nearly $50,000, they intend to spend $10,250 on fees and another $25,200 for attorneys. Why plan to spend over 50% of your budget on legal fees? Some in the vocal minority will no doubt point out later tonight that we have spent too much money on legal bills. Each and every request from citizens, such as James McGonigal and Shelley Sherman, require a volunteer board with no legal experience to hire an attorney to ensure we properly release all of our records. Many of the political attacks we continue to endure also require legal counsel. Because our parks have somehow become a political lightning rod, we receive records requests and endure political attacks no matter what we do or don't do. Some may point out that this board spent $41,000 in legal fees a few years ago. I would say many of those fees had to do with the Madru property, a $1.5 million purchase, of which the entire year's legal fees represent less than 3% of the purchase price. A property that now sits unused with a field gone fallow because this volunteer park district does not have the ability to turn it into a true park and maintain it. Finally, I know some of you think we should wait until after the election to decide our course of action. Waiting would make sense if this decision was solely about money. However, it is no longer just about money. It's about the inability of an underfunded, understaffed, volunteer park board to properly and safely manage 422 acres of parkland while under a constant and coordinated attack from the trustees, the budget commission, and a small group of activists. We simply cannot effectively operate under these conditions. The why of my decision to discuss leasing our parks to Geauga Park District is much simpler, because it is the only way I can see that gives us a real chance to maintain ownership of Russell Parks in Russell for the long term. A well-structured and restricted lease protects our parkland while this period of politicizing our parks has time to pass us by. I pledge that any leasing agreement I will consider must explicitly not permit hunting of any kind, not permit the use of motorized vehicles, not permit the installation of horse trails, not permit gas or mineral drilling, and not permit gas pipelines on our properties. Any lease I consider must be consistent with the conservation easements placed on the property. Any lease I consider must include language that capital improvements will conform to the bylaws of this park board.
And our approval.
And our approval. Thank you, Donna. In short, the way we enjoy our parks today will not change tomorrow. Before we open the floor to public comments, I'd like to remind everyone of the rules of decorum for tonight's meeting. Only Russell residents may speak at this meeting. Come to the podium, state your name and address for the record, and speak directly to this board, not to the audience. Comments will be limited to 2 minutes and only about the issues at hand, the Dines Road conservation easement and the potential leasing of the parklands. Anyone that would like to speak, please come forward.
I'm Jim Mueller, and I'm one of the trustees, and I live at 7939 Kinsman. I am a Russell resident.
Jim, could you move that lectern over to the side and kind of face everybody? We can't hear you with the back.
I like it when I can hide behind it, and then nobody can get a clean shot at it.
That's
Now you're back at other people. Microphone.
Sign up for furniture. I recognize that there's hard feelings on all sides of this issue. But I guess what I'm here to talk about is how we can
We can't hear you.
how we can cooperate our way out of this problem. First off, I believe that there is more money available than $40,000. And I believe that the auditor is here, and he can talk about that issue as well. I know what has been said, and I can't tell you exactly, but I believe there's more money available to you than you think. The second thing that I'm concerned about is that if one of the things you really want to do is keep the parks open, that's what you're considering. The only park right now that is open is the Uplands. And as a trustee, I'm sure I can convince my other trustees to at least plow the driveway. We have trucks that do that anyway, so we can do that as a major issue. I'm sure we can get volunteers to do a spring cleanup and a fall cleanup along the trails. It's not going to cost that much money to operate the parks at a baseline level for a period of a couple of years. One of the other concerns that I had, which is what you guys brought up, you brought it up, Scott, is the fact that you're asking the taxpayers to give you money at the very moment in which it appears as though you're going out of business or trying to go out of business or mostly go out of business. And there are issues that have to be addressed that have to do with not only the conservation easements, but also, for instance, and I'm not a lawyer, so I'm just going to say what I've been told, that a considerable amount of money was pumped into the uplands by the state of Ohio. And there,
It's 2 minutes.
by the uplands. and, or by the state of Ohio. And I believe that there may be some requirements in those,
There is, if those trails are not maintained open, we have to pay the money back,
yes,
over
well.
$1 million.
Yeah, but there might be some other things too, and I think that your attorney's gonna have to take a look at that.
All
I
right,
guess
thank
what-
you, Mr. Miller. We appreciate your comments.
Thank you.
As much as we appreciate the cooperation you want to have now, we've been asking for cooperation for 10 months.
And this is a letter that was sent out in December of 2017. The commissioners of the Russell Township 1545 Park Commission would like to reach out to the newly formed